Coogs house. It sounds like in the next 12 months, you may have a pair of Houston Cougars making noise in their respected drafts to the pros.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, the daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, and whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first and maybe also second listen of the day. If you want to join the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below. If you could be the ambassador to anywhere, where would you go? My hot take here, I think I'd go to Fiji. Tell us where'd you go and why. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. As we mentioned in the open, we're doing a couple of episodes today to try and catch up on an eventful weekend with the Ainsworth household, leading to less shows out than normal. Trying to pay back a little bit by getting some more stuff out later today as well. We got a lot to talk about. I'm excited. I'm already looking forward to the NBA draft. I want to start putting Jamal Shead on teams. So I got like ideas on where he can go on teams. I'm talking about why I'm excited about that, which is because Jamal Shead's doing great at the NBA Combine, killing it. But first, the draft story of the day that people might not have been prepared to talk about, and that is that Donovan Smith is being slotted by several at this point to be a first-round quarterback drafted in the 2025 NFL draft. Now, these mocks are the early, way too early 2025 mock drafts or whatever, but several people have come out and put Donovan Smith in their first rounds. It started on Friday with Ian Cummings, who slots him in the first round, so that, quote, heading into the 2025 NFL draft cycle, Smith grades out as a top 75 prospect and worthy of an early round candidate at the quarterback position. With more sustained growth in 2024, he can work his way into the first round conversation. If I had to bet on another quarterback to join Carson Beck in round one, that player would be Donovan Smith. Now, what's interesting is the sentiment here is shared by a number of other guys at CBS, various other like NFL drafts expertise, like draft only website kind of things. A lot of mocks for the 2025 NFL draft are placing Donovan in the first round. And I think what's interesting there is that, first of all, we should point out, like, could not be happening to a better kid. Right? Could not be happening to a better leader. Everyone that comes into any kind of contact with Donovan loves talking about the genuine person the kid is. So, like, that is, above all else, a big part of the win here, right? But I think what's interesting is a lot of people look at Donovan's play from his first year as a full-time starter in Houston, and were maybe shocked or startled. I want to reiterate, Donovan had his best year as a college quarterback as a full-time starter in Houston last year. He completed 64.5% of his passes for 2,800 yards, had 22 touchdowns and 13 picks. And he also, for what's worth, added another 6 touchdowns on the ground. And frankly, there were points last year we thought he could have been used in the ground game more. The dual threat thing, I think, could be a legitimate weapon of his that Houston didn't really harness in 2023. Admittedly, the shoulder surgery we heard about after the season, we don't necessarily know how much it impacted his play during the season, but I digress. What's interesting to look at those numbers for Donovan are that they're kind of middle of the pack for college football. And I think it's a lot of people wondering, well, how is this middle of the pack guy getting projected into the first round? It's a fair question, except that I think a lot of people are expecting a big jump out of Donovan this year, even with the change in coaching staffs, as it's his second year as a full-time starter. That's a normal time for quarterbacks to make a jump, especially when a guy's been in the Big 12 as long as Donovan has. He came in from Texas Tech, right? Spent a lot of time in the Big 12 as well. Honestly, you could see him get that number up into the 67, 68, maybe even closer to 70% completion. That would be a big lift into the first round for sure. If he can get the touchdown interception ratio down of like up to 25 touchdowns and down to like 7 or 8 picks, that's another big thing in the books for him as well. And I will point out, because turnovers, I think, were a thing people were upset about with him last year. He did seem to like kind of throw them in spurts. He'd have like, 4-2 games here and then none for a game or two, and then 4-2 games and none for a game. So that kind of thing, right? Just cutting out the bad games, and that would go a long ways. I think though, when I looked at quarterback drafts, what I hadn't really put together. So the 2024 NFL draft had a lot of quarterbacks taken. 6 of the top 12 picks were all quarterbacks. It's a little bit of an outlier. But by and large, right, like CBS had him going 25th overall, right? That would have him in their mock draft as the 4th quarterback taken. They had him behind Carson Beck of Georgia, Shedeur Sanders of Colorado, and Quinn Ewers of Texas. And for what it's worth, there was like a gap kind of there between Ewers and where they had Donovan Smith being drafted all in the first round, but that was their top 4 quarterbacks being drafted. And the argument they make is that there's always a quarterback that plays their way into the first round of the course of the season. And with the dual threat aspect of Donovan's game, they could see it being him. The 4th quarterback is an interesting spot, right? In the 2022 draft, right? That was Will Levis, Kentucky athlete, not really a quarterback, got some run in Tennessee after that. But he is admittedly the 2nd pick of the 2nd round, but that was the 4th quarterback taken that year, right? In the 2023 draft. I'm sorry. The 2022 draft, actually even weirder. Kenny Pickett gets taken in the 1st round. He's the only 1st round quarterback. The 3rd round sees 3 guys go: Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, and Matt Corral. And then Bailey Zappi goes in the 4th round. So that's kind of the quarterback draft class we're looking at there. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'd pick Donovan over a lot of those dudes, a lot of them. And, if you're looking at the entirety of the draft class, quarterbacks go disproportionately early because of their value to a football team. They're also valuable. You can get them on a rookie contract. So you want to roll your dice with them. That makes a ton of sense. Second, Donovan is every bit the athlete to play at the next level. He's big enough, strong enough, can weather the pocket. And frankly, that's kind of stuff that just you can't just teach. You just have to have it. Right. And so that works in his favor. Again, I opened the segment with this, but great young man, coachable young man, coach's kid at that. That goes a long way too to people. And I don't know how to quantify that, but that goes a long way. And then if you add that he improves his play from year 1 as a starter to year 2 as a starter, I'm losing where the argument falls, right? I think that there's actually a chance that he is potentially going to play his way into that, especially when looking at the kind of offense Houston's going to run, where it's a lot of simple things, a lot of spit the ball out kind of RPO reads, if this, then that kind of stuff, a lot of heavy run personnel, which kind of simplifies the pass concept, which are less guys involved in the concepts. I think all that's good for Donovan. And frankly, those offenses for a lot of pro teams can feel more like pro offenses too, right? I mean, that's a good thing as well. And so I read this, and while I don't know that I would have projected it, I do think that CBS, Draft HQ, Ian Cummings, these guys have a point. They make a point. I think it's worth mentioning. And for what it's worth, I think that there's a chance that we all win and Donovan plays his way into that spot. And even if we don't, I'd point out, like several of the quarterbacks we've mentioned that have been in the same area of the draft for their respective drafts, it's not even always necessarily about team wins for how the quarterback goes. We'll be tracking over the course of the season, obviously, and seeing where he gets mocked. But honestly, I think there's a real chance here. I just do. And we'll be interested to see, hopefully, he plays his name into a place where it's kind of unquestioned. Now, if we're thinking about building things and building resumes and building to where we're just unquestionably at the top of our game. We're going to talk about doing that with our car as well, because passion, drive, and patience are the formula for winning championships. And it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance with superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. The parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive. ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusive supply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right. The more discussed draft pick at Houston right now is Jamal Shead. Jamal Shead is the lone guy on last year's number one ranked Houston Cougars to head into the NBA draft. Notably, everyone else is, quote, running it back, trying to get a deeper tournament run. Obviously, Houston's run last year was cut short by a Jamal Shead injury, kind of shortening things up in the Sweet 16 there, as Houston fell by a whole 3 points without the best guard in America. And at the combine, Jamal Shead showed out. Now, in the measurable stuff, Jamal Shead came in at 6'1/4", right? Just over 200 pounds, 200.8 pounds. Wingspan of 6'3", so a positive wingspan, which was actually opposite of what we'd been reported for a while. So good news there for him. A standing reach of 8 feet tall. A vertical reach, meaning when you just standing vertical and jump up and touch, of over 11 feet. So explosive, long arms, good reach, right? Other combine results initially kind of got yanked. And so part of the reason this is delayed, for being really honest, is, and trying to get it out early on Tuesday, some of the data had been removed as they were clarifying some stuff. But once the data got put back out, and all of the different sprint things, they run a 3/4 court, they do agility shuttles, they run around the lane, all of those kinds of things. Jamal Shead was in the top 5 for guards in each different type of sprint, right? One of the best athletes in the gym by and large. Now, at the NBA combine, unlike the NFL combine, right after they do different drills, they go out and throw the ball around, pitch and catch and whatever. Linemen will do different like movement kind of things, whatever. But you can't really go play football, right? That's the NFL combine. You can't just go play football after you work out. At the NBA combine, you can. They divide up guys up into teams. There are 4 different teams of 10 players. They go 5 on 5 off subs. Just make sure everyone gets on the floor. They want to get eyes on everyone in the gym. And Jamal Shead took over. Now, I could go through and play things. It was on ESPN2, which means you go find it on the ESPN Plus app as well. But instead of play-by-playing the 25 minutes he put out there, I think it's worth looking at what NBA scouts and NBA draft experts and people that cover the NBA draft year-round for a living had to say. Jonathan Givony of ESPN had as the most impressive guy on day 1. Draft Express's John Chepkovic, I can't say that correctly, John Chepkovic, Draft Express, called him the best player on the court all day. Sam Vecini of The Athletic, NBA draft coverage specialist, was taken aback by the effort and energy Jamal Shead brought to the floor. Now, his stat line, 25 minutes, 14 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, a steal, like very Jamal Shead-like, and doesn't completely tell the story of how he was controlling the pace of play. He was shutting his guy down on the defensive end. He was finding open shots and hockey assists, orchestrating, even in a pickup game, a glorified pickup game, orchestrating a very methodical offense to attack. And then his defensive intensity, while he had just 1 steal to his name, caused havoc, right? I just think it's interesting that he continues to be ranked outside of the top 30, which is important because the first round is 30 picks in the NBA draft. First round's guaranteed contracts. To this point, most people don't have him higher than 34th. I have to think the NBA Combine is going to change that. I just do. Um, Not just because of the weekend we also had the NBA draft lottery results and all those kinds of things, but I cannot imagine you have guys calling him the most impressive player in the gym and then talk about taking Mark Sears. Right? Like that just doesn't make logical sense. And I was having a conversation with somebody, I'm not going to reveal too many names, but talking about who they wanted their favorite pro basketball team to take, and they wanted a point guard, and they were debating between a couple guys. Admittedly, one of them was 6'5", and one of them was Jamal Shead, and one of them was like 6'2". And after looking at the combine and saying who is under 6'3" and who is over 6'3", with 6'3" being like league average for a point guard, right? Like Steph Curry 6'3", right? What I told this person was, look, if you want to get a bigger player, either a bigger point guard, a bigger playmaker, someone who's not a point guard, I could argue with you about why you should be taking Jamal Shead instead. But ultimately, that's kind of just a different basketball player than we're talking about here. You're looking for a forward or a swingman or a center. Good. Good on you. Go find one. There's a handful in this draft, right? And for what it's worth, this draft's been called like not exciting because there's not the Victor Wembanyama or the LeBron James or whatever. But I do think this draft has, like the draft's being compared to as 2013, there are 20 dudes from that first round in 2013 still in the NBA, right? And so I don't think this draft lacks talent. I think it lacks headliners, right? Um, I say all that as a digression. If you want the 6'5", if you want the 6'10", if you want some other type of basketball player, we could argue over whether or not you should be taking Jamal Shead, but ultimately I'm not going to convince you. You want something else. There is no reason, after watching the combine, after watching the pickup games, after watching college basketball last season as his resume, there is no reason to look at anyone in the NBA draft under 6'3" that is not named Jamal Shead. If Jamal Shead is on the board and you are drafting someone under 6'3", you're going to regret it. I don't care who the kid's dad is. You're going to regret it. He's just a better basketball player. He's just a more experienced basketball player. He just does things that you want to help your team win without being required. He does things outside the box. He does his job. He does all of it. On top of that, the intangibles, the leadership skills, the famous picking up garbage video, all those kinds of things. I don't know where this goes if not the first round. And a year ago, I was grappling with the fact that they were saying Marcus was going to be in the early second round as well as a 6'3" shooting guard, right? Again, frankly, a little bit more undersized than Jamal is, truthfully. And I was like, okay, I guess people say he's got to be a 6'3" shooting guard, and what does that mean for him and whatever. And he snuck into the back half of the first round, right? Got picked 25th over by the Pistons straight up to get him. I kind of feel like that's what's about to happen with Jamal, is all these experts are saying, I got him 34th on my big board. I got him 45th on my big board. And what's going to happen is some basketball person on the draft is going to be like, wait. The best player in the best conference is still available? Wait. The best defensive player in the country is still available? Wait. The best player on the floor at the combine is still available? Trade up and get him at 25. Right? Like, I think that kind of thing is going to happen to Jamal as well. I've got some favorite spots that I want to talk about him potentially going to. But before we get to that, one of the biggest things for Jamal is that he's super, super competitive. And I have to say that as someone very competitive, one way I get that out is not by getting to play NBA basketball, but by playing Monopoly Go, because it's a way to both be competitive with friends and also, if I want to, team up with them for time tournaments as well, build up each other's boards, win together, win awesome prizes like unique stickers, different emojis to send one another when talking trash. Monopoly Go is new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own mini games like digging for treasure, robot pachinko. There's always new timed events to help you win big time, like massive multipliers and all kinds of rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So off get off the bench and go download it for free at Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, now financial success is something we're all looking to achieve, and I have to say that my wife and I are really digging into our investments to try and get our first house these days. And wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investments, everything you put in, and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views of multiple accounts into one hub and access expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. Let's get straight to the point. You want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising costs of inflation, to pay off your debt or your mortgage, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom, right? Yahoo Finance gives you the access to news, data, and tools you need in order to help reach that financial freedom. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. The number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspective, analyst rankings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's time for Yahoo Finance to ensure that you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. All right, now I mentioned I'm getting excited about Jamal Shead in the NBA draft as he's about to go make a bunch of money. And, I got a handful of spots here that I'd love to see him land that all kind of pick in the late first, early second round. Um, and so I want to start with, I think, the one we all see as the best fit, and that is San Antonio. Now, part of this is admittedly, I see Kelvin Sampson and Greg Popovich as a lot alike, right? And so I think that just like, Kelvin and Jamal had this lifelong bond as point guard and coach. I've seen Greg Popovich had that with Tony Parker. San Antonio is talking about potentially moving to Jamal Shead's hometown of Austin one day. They played a couple games there the last couple of years. Victor Wembanyama is the defensive anchor at center. A lot of these things are adding up, right? I think the other thing worth looking at is the only 2 point guards in the roster currently, Devontae Graham and Trey Jones, both of whom will be unrestricted free agents next summer. So you think if they're going to both be gone by 2025, you want to get a point guard of the future underneath them, maybe get a year where they overlap with one of them, trade the other, et cetera, right? I think the biggest fit here, though, is the defensive pressure that Pop loves. You have Jamal Shead doing on the perimeter with Victor Wembanyama behind him at the rim. You can get that duo together for like a decade, right? Lock them both down with the rookie contracts, the extensions. You get them for at least 7 years together. Like that kind of defense could be lethal in the Western Conference. I also think, for what it's worth, like, while Jamal would have one less year in the NBA, if you're trying to get like an older guy to be around Victor and kind of like show him the ropes, I mean, both guys are so solely focused on greatness, right? You hear about like Victor Wembanyama like reading books and going to bed at 8 o'clock on nights they don't have games. Jamal Shead is all business all the time, very focused on basketball and not in a bunch of trouble. And that, like, you want those kinds of culture pieces together. I think that's a great fit for him. As much as that pains me as a Houstonian or Houston fan to be like, oh, let's send him San Antonio. I think the one people don't talk about as much as far as a great fit for him, though, was Milwaukee. I think Jamal Shead in Milwaukee makes sense for a couple reasons. One, yes, he's Dame Lillard's backup in the situation, and Dame has another few years left on a massive mega deal contract. I don't know if that Lillard's totally happy there or not. That's kind of depends on the analyst you read, and this isn't a Dame Lillard or a Milwaukee Bucks show. But for Jamal Shead, you know, Dame is 34 going on 35. He's not going to play every night. He can't play every minute. Those are all minutes you want a guy that can run the show like Jamal Shead to run. I also think that you've seen Dame Lillard play next as small guards like CJ McCollum before, having those two in the backcourt with the gigantic front court of Giannis and Brook Lopez, and those guys would be great. Defensively, while Dame has his issues, you'd then have Jamal Shead and Giannis and Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. I mean, a really, really good defensive team out there around Dame Lillard, who does not defend very well. Put that all together, that's a pretty strong group around Jamal. Another team I looked at was Indiana. The Indiana fit's a good one. Carlisle and Sampson are kindred spirits, much like Pop and Sampson are. I have my drawbacks. Reason my third on my list. I have my drawbacks because I don't think they've used Jarris right this year, but I think they also unexpectedly ended up winning a lot more games. It's something needing to kind of prioritize the here and now winning over the future and development in a way they might not have predicted when they were picking 8th in the lottery last year, right? Now, Carlisle and Sampson are a lot alike, both big defensive back guys, big culture guys. But as far as the backcourt goes, Halliburton, their star point guard, is like almost 6'6". And I think that's a big part of how this works is that Jamal Shead could be on the floor playing off of Halliburton on offense, back and forth, 2 point guards distributing the ball. Both Halliburton and Jamal have done that with Marcus or De'Aaron Fox, right? With Jamal and Marcus in Houston, De'Aaron Fox and Halliburton in Sacramento. But defensively, Jamal Shead could still mark up the smallest guard because Halliburton is, again, almost 6'6". He could cover a wing or a 2 guard if he needed him to, right? I also think it's worth pointing out that on their roster, TJ McConnell is undrafted free agent or unrestricted free agent in 2025. Andrew Nembhard has a club option 2025, so they'll also be a year, as of this summer's draft, a year out from needing to make some shifts and changes. I think McConnell's going to demand a lot of money, and frankly, the rookie contract for Jamal Shead is probably more beneficial for Indiana, who's looking to pay guys like Halliburton a lot of cash, right? And last but not least, not just because they're on the TV Tuesday night playing the playoffs, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are a great fit for Jamal. Right now, their lone point guard on the roster for next season, as far as like their contract situations go, is Mike Conley. He's 37 years old. Right, that's really old for the NBA, and he, for what it's worth, is unrestricted free agent in 2026. So he's only got 2 years left in his contract. He'll be 39, right? Yes, they have Defensive Player of the Year, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert at the rim. I think they need more perimeter defense, and watch them play against Denver when they've had success against Denver or other great teams. It's because they can kind of get after it at the point guard spot to get after your whoever, right? Jamal Shead offers that perimeter pressure with the rim defense behind him is big time. I think the thing they're all doing is they're covering up the fact that Karl-Anthony Towns can't cover anybody, right? So like they're doing that by having great perimeter defense around him, great rim defense behind him. You need Jamal Shead involved in that. I also think that Jamal Shead running the show on offense with Anthony Edwards as the off guard there, to where he can catch in triple threat the wing. You don't have to rely on Ant Edwards to bring the ball up. I think those kinds of pieces work here too, because Jamal Shead understands. I mean, he's mature, right? He understands when it's his turn and when it's his buddy's turn, right? and be able to work with Ant on that as Anthony Edwards develops into a star player. I mean, one of the best players in the NBA. Having a point guard that understands the moment, understands when to get in the ball, understands when not to, are both equally important, right? And so I think that's a great fit for him. Regardless, I can't believe that we're still talking about him as the 34th pick, Jamal Shead, that is, and not like in the 20s at the very least. So we'll be following the development in that each and every day here at Locked On Cougs, just like we will be with Donovan Smith and everything each and every day here. Locked On Cougs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.